What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Miller. Jay Miller, if you like. Let's get into it. Uh, I was wrong completely on this game. I was like, hey, the Cowboys will be competitive unless they don't show up. Hey, there's no way that Detroit's gonna have a 44-3 game or a 57-10 game on the Cowboys. It was 47-9. Might as well have been 57-10. I mean, the Cowboys absolutely didn't show up. They continued their trend of what they've been doing all season, which is not playing well at home. If you want to think about it, the New Orleans Saints beat the Cowboys at home, something like 44-19. The Ravens were up 28-3 in the third quarter against the Cowboys at home. The Detroit Lions beat them 47-9. Green Bay beat them 48-32, and at one point was up 27-0. So the Cowboys have just been demolished at home. And a lot of times, we'll get into excuses about them having injured players on the offense, them having some injured players, or quite a few injured players on defense, and, not really being able to expend the energy necessary or have the talent necessary to be able to keep up in a game like this. But I go back to when the game was, 7-3, and the Lions were ahead, and the Cowboys were driving down. And just like we talked about in the last game, CeeDee Lamb runs an over route, and he seems to be on the towards the end of the route, heading towards the back pylon. Dak Prescott throws it towards the middle of the end zone. The safety breaks on it, and now it's intercepted. If he would have thrown it towards the back pylon, CeeDee Lamb probably gets a touchdown, but at the very least, it's incomplete, out of bounds, and the Cowboys get some sort of points out of the drive to be able to keep the game in a manageable score. And maybe that changes things as you go forward. Maybe that gives your team some confidence. Maybe your defense plays a little better now that you go out and at the very least get 3 points to make it a 10-6 game, or get 7 points to make it a 10-10 game. Or maybe at that time we were, maybe it was 7-3. I might have had the score wrong. But either way, you would have had either the lead or a tie game, and, have your team feeling a little bit differently about themselves as they start to go forward. Now, I did also take a look at later in the game when Cooper Rush threw a very similar pass just on the opposite side of the field to the receiver. Believe it was Draylon Brooks, and instead of throwing it to the back pylon, Cooper Rush actually threw it to the exact same spot. So at first I was getting on Dak Prescott about, hey, why are you not throwing it to the back pylon? That seems like the proper read. Why are you throwing it kind of in between the front pylon and the back pylon? Trying to throw it to the sideline, but still kind of throwing it in between as opposed to the pylon. But then when I saw Cooper Rush doing the same thing, it sort of made me think this might be one of those situations where it comes down to coaching rather than the way the player's playing. Maybe this is how the Cowboys are coaching it, because two different quarterbacks threw it to the exact same spot, but the same result happened two different times. So I don't know yet whether to put that on Dak Prescott or to put that on coaching, if they're coaching them to throw it to the middle as opposed to the back pylon. But either way, even if you are being coached that way, sometimes the quarterback, especially a $60 million quarterback, you have to make up for some of the faults of your coach. You have to make up for some of the faults of your team and make sure that you're making the right read, because at the end of the day, it comes down to you. You're out there, you're playing, the coach isn't playing. You got to do what you got to do. So it was disappointing to see that, to me, same mistake 2 weeks in a row, even though now, because it's becoming a trend, I don't know if it's a coaching point. One of the other things that I thought the Cowboys did very horrifically out here today was they gave Ezekiel Elliott a number of snaps early in the game, and he was just as unproductive as we all remember. It seemed like because Ezekiel Elliott complained about his role this week and complained about his lack of touches and said he was dumbfounded, the Cowboys made it a purpose to get him out there early in the game and let him get some snaps running the ball with Dak Prescott out of shotgun, running the ball behind, single back behind the two tight end set. And every time he did, it was horrible. Now, I'm not saying Rico Dowdle was great, because Rico Dowdle was pretty average today, too. I actually think the offensive line played their worst game of the season. This is the worst I've seen them play. It was even worse than Baltimore. They played very, very poorly. A lot of leakage, allowed Dak to get hit a lot. He didn't have a lot of time to drop back and complete his passes. They were getting no movement in the run game. And as I talked to you before, I didn't see anything on tape that said this Detroit Lions defensive line was so awesome that the Cowboys wouldn't be able to have any success on offense. If you look at all the games they played, you look at the game against Tampa, you even look at the game against the Seahawks, which they won, pretty handily. The Seahawks were still able to run the ball sometimes. They were able to throw the ball sometimes. They were able to move it. But the Cowboys just seemed like they were dead set on shooting themselves in the foot early. The offense didn't show up to play. The defense didn't show up to play. The Cowboys spent more time being concerned about what people, in the media are saying as far as, oh, Ezekiel Elliott, he's not getting his touches. What are the Cowboys going to do? Oh, CeeDee Lamb is not getting as involved as he needs to be. What are the Cowboys going to do? And they were more concerned with doing that than actually game planning, for the defense that they were going against and actually making sure that they had a good offensive game plan to attack the defense. Sorry, I almost messed up there. Screw what all those other guys want to say. Screw what Ezekiel Elliott wants and screw that CeeDee Lamb getting involved in the second half. I mean, he's here now. We paid him his money, right? So he's going to get involved no matter what. But you shouldn't be building your offensive game plan to coddle to your stars. You should be building an offensive game plan to beat the other team. The Cowboys looked lost today. It looked like all the progress they made in the previous 2 weeks makes it look like more so, oh, they just played the Giants and oh, they just played the Steelers. I mean, I don't want to say it like that because they had to work to have a game plan to make sure that they were able to win those games. But then when it came to a true test of the season, another good team, another very good team that you're going to have to go through if you want to get to where you want to go this year and, you're uncompetitive. And one of the things that I said, Thursday and Friday in both my episodes, I was like, the Cowboys are not going to win this game, but they'll at least be competitive. And I was totally wrong about that. The Cowboys were not competitive today. And now they got 2 weeks to figure it out. And then they go to San Francisco. And who has any confidence after what we've seen this season and what we've seen for the last 2 years, picking them to do anything in San Francisco? Not me, not this guy. I feel like it's going to be a very close repeat showing to what we had today. So looking at the offense, horrible. Looking at the defense, horrible. I'm trying to think of who I can have as my standouts in the game for positive plays. Man, this is really tough because I feel like they failed on so many levels today. I guess positive Cowboys star up. I could give one to Cavante Turpin. He had a 79-yard kick return and had several other nice returns today, but where he faked like he was going to throw it back to the other receiving guy, but then just kept turning it upfield, turned down the Jets and, really got us some great field position to start the drive. So I guess Cavante Turpin and the special teams in general was a positive today. Another star up I would give to is Brandon Aubrey. Aubrey is still automatic. He went 3 for 3 on field goals. The Cowboys, every time he had a chance, he pretty much converted. The Cowboys were down early, so he didn't get as many chances as he would have if their defense would have held up or if their offense would have possessed the ball and stopped turning it over. I mean, the Cowboys had 5 turnovers today. Five turnovers today. So that's 5 drives that ended up with Detroit having the ball without them having to receive a kickoff. That can't happen. That can't happen. Not as poorly as the Cowboys are constructed at this point. They need to be a very fundamentally sound team. They need to be a team that plays tougher than the other team, right? Because when you're lacking talent, which apparently that's what's going on with the Cowboys this year, they lack the talent. You need to make up for that with effort. You need to make up for that with smarts. You need to make up for that with know-how, being in the right place at the right time, letting nobody work harder than you. And those are the things that they're lacking, right? They're lacking that physical toughness at this point, and they're lacking that mental toughness at this point. But Brandon Aubrey, his field goals, he got to convert them, and whenever the Cowboys put him in, in his situation to succeed, he succeeded. So now I'm trying to think of who I can give a third star up. I mean, It's tough, man, because I kind of want to give it a little bit to Chauncey Golston, but he was also getting beat in the trenches today. But whenever the Cowboys, needed a big play in the game, he seemed to come up with a big sack or a big tackle for loss and would defeat his man, but he just didn't do it consistent enough. And honestly, nobody on the Cowboys front line did it consistent enough. I've been praising Mozzie Smith for the last few weeks. He didn't do it consistent enough. Linval Joseph wasn't consistent enough. Odigizua wasn't consistent enough. They were actually getting walled off, and then the Lions were having huge holes where these guys were running for 10 or 15 yards before they even got touched. And then when they were getting touched, they were even getting tackled correctly. People were missing tackles in the open field. Linebackers are falling off and pulling shirts and trying to pull legs, and running backs were just running through them, running over them. It seemed very early on that the Cowboys are not interested. Trayvon Diggs, again, making business decisions. There was one of the runs that David Montgomery had to the left side. So offense is left, defense is right. Trayvon Diggs was out there, and I know I talked about, if they wanted to protect them a little bit, they would kind of shade a linebacker to that side when the lines went heavy that side. Shade a defensive tackle over there, walk the safety up so that Trayvon Diggs' responsibility would be turning the run back inside to his help and letting some more short tacklers make the tackle. Well, the Cowboys didn't make any adjustments like that. This was just like the New Orleans Saints game. The Cowboys are just like, I don't know, I'm just going to do it. And they just threw guys out there and just let them play the same position and get beat on the same plays over and over again, and just were basically hoping the guys would play better. So I don't understand it sometimes how we just go out there and we have our game plan, and when the game plan goes to crap, they go, I don't know what to do. There's no adjustments. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I know what you guys all know that's the definition of. But so I mean, Golston was probably the closest to a star up I could get on defense. I love Overshone, but he didn't get a chance to show his true self today. Damone Clark made a few plays, but gave up way more than he made. They really missed Eric Kendricks out there. They definitely missed Micah Parsons out there. But I don't even know if those two players were enough to make a difference today. Maybe the Cowboys might have, stopped the Detroit Lions one more time, and maybe it would have been 40-9. But the offense was still going to do what they do. I mean, the offense is missing Brandon Cooks, but that's all they're missing. Tyler Guyton was healthy to play this week, and they just didn't start him. The running backs were all healthy to play this week, but they wanted to put Ezekiel Elliott out there. They didn't want to give Hunter Lipke any screens. They didn't want to give Hunter Lipke any downhill carries. They were too busy worrying about what Ezekiel Elliott thought. He's washed up. They got to get past this. They can't just keep throwing their eggs in this basket, seeing what's happening, and just keep making the same decisions. I feel like everybody in here, how when the team is having success and, you're looking at where the success is coming from, you're like, man, the offensive line's kind of blocking it up well, and, the quarterback's getting the ball out of his hands to his playmakers, and his playmakers are, making guys miss in the open field, and they're making plays. So the success is coming from kind of like everybody. It's the same way with this failure. It's Jerry Jones failing the head coach by setting him up with this roster. It's the head coach failing his players by listening to the owner and listening to the players bitch and moan and do what they want to do. And the inmates are running the asylum. It's all kind of chaos there. Then the players are failing their coaches, because if I'm a player and I'm up there and I'm like, I want this, I want that, and the other players are like, yeah, give them this, give them that. I expect when we get on the field, you're going to block it up. I'm going to run hard. I'm going to get these yards because I'm over here making my voice known that this is what I want, and then I'm going to go out there and be lackluster? No, I'm going to go out there and put together my best performance, right? That's what you would expect. So everybody's failing each other all around, and I don't know if a bye week is enough to get it fixed. We've seen teams before look all kinds of sloppy, look all kinds of discombobulated, get it fixed, and go on later in the season and do good things. But the Cowboys' schedule sets up tough, right? So even as they continue to go forward, if they're getting some other things fixed, there's still going to be weeks where the team, Houston's just better than you. The 49ers are just better than you. Even if you play a good game, those teams are just better than you. Atlanta's just better than you. Washington's just better than you. You're going to run into those times a lot this year where, you know what? You're not playing. You're not putting out the clunker that you put out here today against the Detroit Lions. Maybe it is 24-23 or 28-27, and your defense gets some stops and they get some turnovers, and you capitalize off them. But there's also going to be times where, those other teams, you can't stop them. And I don't see how a couple of weeks, especially if there's no additions to this team. And the worst part about it is, if you looked at the Cowboys across the board, they need more than one addition. They need several additions, right? They probably could use some receiving help. They probably could use some offensive line help. They could definitely use some running back help. They could use some defensive line help. They could use some safety help. Like, they need it so much across the board that even if you made a trade or two that you thought was a big name and a big slash to try to help this team, it still wouldn't do enough to cover up all the warts that we've got to see now. We now have a good sample size. We are 6 weeks into the season. We have a good sample size of what these teams are. There's going to be a lot more of this carnage to come as we get through the next few weeks of the season. But I'll be here for you guys. I'll be here to cover it all. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's all I got for you. You can follow me on Twitter at JMillerIYL. That's J Miller if you like. You can also hit me up via email, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Also, knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. You can hit me there. You can hit me in the comments below, via email, via Twitter. If you have any questions, if there's anything specific that you want me to cover, I'll take it, put it in a mailbag format, make it a regular segment. But thank you guys for tuning in so much. I love you guys. We're up to 21 subscribers, so make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button so that you know when I'm coming in. But until next time, I'm your host, J Miller if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.